We made it. The bye week is here. It is December 3rd, a Wednesday. A happy hump day to you from the Pat's Interference Podcast. Member of the Debonair, Daffy, Dexterous, CLNS Media Network. I am about to be like the Patriots in that I will be off work for the next couple of days. But first, we wanted to give you all of the answers to everything you wanted to know. This is a mailbag episode, all questions answered edition. If you didn't find me on Twitter or Blue Sky, we'll get to you next week. Maybe not next week, actually, because Mike Giardi is not going to be back for a live Mike Giardi Monday because we don't have a game to break down. So we'll have 2 episodes next week, starting on Tuesday or Wednesday, which means about another week's break. But hey, that's the bye week. And I can't say I earned it as much as the Patriots did, playing 13 football games, including 4 in the last 22, 23 days. I think I earned it a little bit more. So we're going to take that time off. In all seriousness, there is a lot of meat on the bone still from those last couple of episodes if you did not listen. Last week, before the Patriots beat the Giants, and I didn't make a game pick. I don't know if anyone missed that. It was the 1 week I took off, didn't make a game pick. We talked with Karen Guregian about whether the Patriots are the best team in the AFC. Did so again with Mike Giardi. We talked about the shades of Brady, if you can believe it, that we saw from Drake Maye on Monday night, plus where they are kind of in the AFC. So even though you know what happened in Pats Giants and some of the preview content for Pats Giants is irrelevant now, there's enough there where if you've not listened to those 2 episodes, there's topical, relevant stuff that's got a longer shelf life than some of the other stuff we do here on a week-to-week basis. So go back and listen to those. In the meantime, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. We stalled out a little bit, plateaued. It happens. It's cold. We're busy. It's the holidays. But if you have not subscribed at _Andrew Callahan, you are missing every single episode. You're missing smaller clips. If you don't have time for 50 minutes, an hour, hour 20, you can just get the 5 minutes about Drake Maye or Mike Vrabel or this X's and O's breakdown. It's all on YouTube at _Andrew Callahan. Now, if you were like me, not a YouTube person, because I still don't get, and I feel like I'm still in the range, 34 and a half. YouTube has been a part of my life for most of my life. I don't get the video podcast. We love you. I love you. I appreciate every single view in complete sincerity. I just can't do it. I'm a podcast in the car guy, at the gym, supermarket, whatever. Anyway, if you were like me, and listen on Spotify or Apple, please leave us a rating or review. They all help us grow. The show has continued to grow with these live shows on Mondays. Been an absolute blast. The more you give us feedback, the better we can be, the more cool things that we can do. Now, in case none of that is going to satisfy you, I will be on Brian Barrett's podcast, frequent guest in this show, the Off the Pike podcast, coming up here, actually recording in like 30 minutes. So we better get to it. So you can find me there. I will not be anywhere until after that, until Tuesday with Toucher and Hardy to do some 2 stats on the line. In the meantime, I'm just going to be at home, savoring what the season's been, savoring time with family, and savoring what should be an amazing Sunday, even without the Patriots, because there are good games galore. And before we get to the mailbag, I wanted to give you the rooting guide, which you could probably figure out yourself, but we're here to make your life easier. Again, even if you are sitting at home with time to watch a video, as opposed to listen while you do something else like I do. The Patriots have very clear rooting interests going into this weekend, and we'll start with Bengals-Bills. The Patriots cannot clinch the AFC East this week while they sit in their hands or do nothing, or Mike Vrabel, I think, might be in Park City, Utah. Who knows where he's got a home. They can, though, have it easier if the Bengals just beat the Bills in Buffalo, which should be an awesome game unto itself with Burrow and Josh Allen. So there's number 1, root for the Bengals. Number 2, and this is probably more important considering where they are in the AFC, the Raiders gave Denver a game. It was 10-7. It was Thursday night. It was one of those burn the tape immediately. We don't need to see this anymore. I'm sure Al Michaels was complaining by the third quarter. It was 10-7. The Raiders pushed them. Now the Raiders get to play at home. I get that the Raiders stink. They might be the worst team in the league, but clearly you're rooting for them against the Broncos, who have to go to Vegas. It's a 4:00 game. Then the Jaguars. We're going to be at home against the Colts. One prominent Patriots player told me, hey, I got a hot take for you. I ever wanted to do your media business. This is in the locker room this week. Colts are going to miss the playoffs. Well, you know what would help with that is if the Jaguars win. And in the meantime, completely take them out of the number 1 seed conversation, which they probably are anyway, given Sauce Gardner's health and Daniel Jones. But you're rooting for the Jaguars is the bottom line. Here's the last one. This is a little tricky. Chiefs-Texans Sunday night. This is the crown jewel of the Week 14 schedule, but I'm not going to tell you which way to root on this one. I don't know how much hate is left in your heart for the Chiefs, who really did not do the Patriots dirty aside from a couple of regular season wins. But I understand the fear of Patrick Mahomes, even though these Chiefs are not those Chiefs. Okay. And the defense, especially when they're blitzing Kansas City, meaning it's night and day. This is a bad defense when they do the one thing that Steve Spagnuolo has been best at over his entire career. So again, these Chiefs are not those Chiefs, but they host the Texans, whose defense is legit when they blitz or rush zero or do whatever they want to do because it's the best in the league. So if you don't want to see that defense, you might root for Kansas City. If you just don't want to see Patrick Mahomes, then root for the Texans. Either way, that game is Sunday night. That is the best on the slate. And the kicker is, and we'll actually end on this because I'm writing about this for Sunday. It's just a big, 11 thoughts, kind of where we are. And one of the thoughts I've had is I'm just sick of the schedule talk. So I bothered to look up who the Patriots' opponents are next year. And I know that this is obviously difficult, much more difficult than it is this year. The names are still astonishing. The Patriots could play between 8 and 11 games next season from playoff teams this year. Again, more than half their schedule could consist, especially if they finish in first place, of playoff teams from this year. Here are the home games: Bills, Broncos, Packers, Dolphins, Vikings, Jets, Raiders, and then probably the first place team in the AFC North. That's at home. Here's the road: Bills, Bears, Lions, Chiefs, Chargers, Dolphins, Jets, an AFC South team. Let's just say Houston or the Jags. And then an NFC West team, Seattle or San Francisco or the Rams, all on the road. So the next time anyone wants to bring up to you, oh my God, the Patriots schedule is so easy. Yeah. And I've said this before, it's context. It's not the cause for this season. Next year, though, you're not going to hear about an easy schedule. That is going to be brutal. So anyway, you will see some of the teams next year that you're watching on Sunday. That's who you need to root for. Let's get to your questions. Number one, Burt Breer reported last night that Will Campbell, last night meaning, what are we talking about? Monday night, 2 nights ago, suffered a grade 3 MCL sprain, which is basically a tear. Any idea how that doesn't require surgery, and would it really be wise for him to even come back this season? So we got to do the thing all the media members do and should do when we talk about injuries. Not a doctor. The guy speaking, answering a medical question, does not have a medical background. The little that I've been able to glean and read and find out about the injury that Will Campbell has is that there's a 4 to 6 week window, and it typically leans a little bit towards the later side, which for the Patriots, technically he could come back for that regular season finale against the Dolphins on January 4th. But to me, I would just hold him out the entire regular season, especially if they do get that first round bye. You want him at 100%, as good as Vederian Lowe was, and we talked about him with Mike on Monday, and we'll talk about him in a second. He's one of your best offensive players. That's just what it is. So as far as why it doesn't require surgery or not, if there is a tear, it doesn't sound like it's something that maybe was an entire tear. Again, Burt's report just kind of stressed that it's serious, but it will heal on its own. So this is just about time. And in the meantime, staying in shape in a way that typically you can't when injuries this long, 4 weeks or longer, kind of inhibit you from a cardio standpoint or other parts of your body. So the research I did months ago, writing a profile of Will, is that this dude comes in the league with NFL toughness and preparedness and just care about football, which is reasons 1, 2, and 3, plus the play demeanor, which Vrabel says whenever he can, why the Patriots drafted him 4th overall. Okay. And you'll notice I did not say because he plays left tackle. This is the exact guy that Vrabel wants. He is the rock upon which they built their first draft class. So this dude is going to come back as fast and as hard and as healthy as he can, but he does need the rest because that's just what the injury is. So surgery, why or not, I don't know. But the timeline that we all have suggests he could be back, especially for a divisional round game, and possibly be fine with a wild card game. I just would still, out of an abundance of caution, say just forget the Dolphins. We're good. Kyle, when can we stop using the comps to Josh Allen and Justin Herbert for Drake Maye and just say Drake Maye has separated himself from those comps? Well, Kyle, I would compel you to lead us on this. Plant your flag right here. Drake Maye is his own guy. In fact, he's his own guy that we say his name twice now. And what I'm really warming up to this bit. But the point is, look, we shouldn't make comparisons to things that are unprecedented. We learned this from Josh Allen, whose development curve going not year 1 to year 2, but year 2 to year 3. And there was a big jump year 1 to year 2. He's more accurate. He's a better decision maker. But 2 to 3 was the MVP candidate leap. And then the serious MVP play was year 3 to year 4. You just did not see these big 6'5", traditional prototypes, ball of clay, where he's completing like 58% of his passes at Wyoming, become and develop to the player that he is now, one of the most accurate, dangerous creators at the quarterback position that we've seen in the modern era. All of which is to say, the new quarterback with this unprecedented developmental curve is, of course, Drake Maye. So we all understand there are elements of these guys' games when you get to that level where they're generally good against the blitz and they can create plays and they're smart and that's got this like athletic IQ that you just kind of can't teach and is baked in. But of course, he's his own guy. I think the Herbert stuff, because Herbert, even who's scrambling and running a little bit more this year, still has kind of like a robotic play style. There is nothing like down to the way that this dude smiles or looks and looks at people and handles himself. That's robotic. So Drake Maye, of course, is his own guy. But if you want to rub with this, I'm right behind it. Burnt ships. This is most of someone's name on Twitter. Belichick used to talk about the bye week as a time to self-scout and adjust accordingly. What are the biggest adjustments you expect the team to make after the bye week? So with the advent of analytics and building out football staffs much bigger than they were in 2001, in 2010, 2018, 2021, and specifically with Vrabel, contrasting to Belichick, whose staffs basically got smaller and smaller, you're self-scouting every week. And I've asked this question to guys like Josh McDaniels. And at some points, in the season, especially when you get somewhere between 4 to 6 games in, there's enough of a sample size where first couple of weeks, everyone's still watching tape from last year. That's really important because that's when you start to develop tendencies and are finding out what you're good at, stuff that inevitably the opponent knows you're going to lean back into, even if you've shown it on tape. The point is, the way that they're able to track and chart and digest all of this information quickly, they know their tendencies. So this notion, I think, was much more valuable, 20 years ago, whenever we heard it first from Belichick, than it is now. They have all this information. They don't need the time to sort through it. It's available there. They have dudes on staff who are just full-time analytics to study what they do well, and what it looks like when they're doing those things. Sometimes, of course, tendencies can still slip through. I mean, you're, adjusting not just based on formation, but sometimes it's the running back personnel or even just the tug of a receiver's gloves. Like, there's a lot of information, but the Patriots are taking the next 4 to 5 days off, and they deserve to, and that rest and recovery is worth a lot more than them staring at a computer screen or charting anything right now, because they know themselves pretty well. And it's due to the guys who do this full time, separate from coaching or scouting or playing. Lawrence, hey, Andrew, I noticed Todd Downing, receivers coach, shuttling players in and out when the Patriots are in the red zone. Does Downing draw up plays down there? I remember a story from training camp talking up his play calling in the red zone. So I got something even more recent for you. Nate Tice, whose father, Mike Tice, was the head coach of the Vikings, employed Todd Downing at the beginning of his career. And Nate spoke glowingly about Todd, who, by the way, I've not been in a lot of like the media scrums, which is, we don't put a lot of stock into this, but it's my interaction with the guy. Has been everything that Mike Vrabel has said at the podium. Connects with the players, smart, is an asset on staff. What Nate shared, though, that has not been said publicly, and I asked Vrabel about this later, is how good historically he's been in the red zone. And the numbers back this up, specifically when Todd Downing was in Tennessee with Mike Vrabel. And those offenses weren't that great, but they were dynamite inside the red zone. Granted, having Derrick Henry as a hammer to just beat defenses over the head with really helps. But the point is, historically, Todd Downing's been very good in the red zone. So he's a part of their game planning down there. It's not the play calling, but traditionally staffs will divide duties during the week. You're going to scheme for the red zone. We got early downs here, third down, whatever it is. Then they come together and see what works and what you brought to the table. Thomas Brown is also involved in there, their tight ends coach and passing game coordinator. And of course, Josh McDaniels has the final say, and Vrabel too. But Downing's involved. That's been his specialty, and the Patriots are putting that to good use. That's all that is. Eat the billionaires. Asks, why do you think the Patriots, speaking of the red zone, stink? 1 of 5 last night, meaning Monday against the Giants. The run game isn't terrible, and the team certainly has good to great receivers and MVP level quarterbacks. So what gives, and how can they fix it? I'll be quick on this because Giardi and I talked about this Monday. They're terrible in short yardage. They're 56% power success rate, meaning just when you have a yard or two to go, how often do you convert? And that includes when it's first and goal, second and goal, third and goal. We all watched what happened in Cincinnati. I mean, that was embarrassing. Now, every team has stuff to fix, and part of this is personnel that goes with the backs as well as the linemen, and play calling factors in, just like sneak the ball a little bit more. And the Patriots did, by the way, against the Giants after McDaniels was way too slow to get there in Cincinnati. But when you just don't have the guys to just bowl over defenses in short spaces, when they know you're running, ball is snapped, let's see what happens. You need to get a little bit more creative, but at some point, there's just nothing around the simple fact that football at times just becomes, I don't know what the opposite of a tug of war is, but a pushing contest, right? Man on man, strength on strength. Patriots aren't good in that area. All good teams in the red zone are good in that area. And aside from that, look, there are receivers that they can throw to, but those fades, those jump balls are 50-50 at best. So when you're already 50-50 on the ground in short yardage, which you should be much better at because that's 29th in the league, I think it is. If not, it's 28th. Then you're just going down the list of things that are already lower percentage than that. And that's the issue here. So it's more when they're in tight quarters, they just can't punch it in. D. Rome, with the draft pick in the 20s now likely, what areas do you think the Patriots will focus on developing through the draft in 2026? And what areas will they go after through free agency? D. Rome, we got a little bit of time before we get here, but I appreciate the question because I think this kind of helps us zoom out when, people like me talk about, oh, the depth isn't that great. And people like you listening might be like, what the hell is your problem? They're 11-2. Why are we complaining about a good team? Look, all teams have flaws. The NFL is down this year without a single great team at the top. More wide open means more fun. But when the Patriots look at their own roster, that lack of depth is what they see. And in conversations with people within the team and just my own eyeballs, that's what it is. So with the draft, you're looking to obviously develop long-term with certain positions that, right now might be fine. Next year might even be fine, but long-term, you want to start her there. The offensive line, of course, is going to be always a factor in this. The Titans, at the end of Vrabel's time, had an old, bad offensive line. They needed to invest more there. So Morgan Moses is 34. Okay, Mike Onwenu's on a big contract. And Mike Onwenu's been sneaky good, by the way, the last couple of weeks. How about the last couple of months? Point is, they'll have depth there. Tight end is another one. Hooper's getting up there. Austin Henry. You don't really have a tight end number 3. The receiver depth, I think they'd probably go through with the draft, but I would be shocked if it's like a first, second round pick. And then defensively, here's the big depth issue. Defensive line, certainly at edge and defensive tackle. Linebacker, I think they would love. And then some depth corner and another safety. If they're going to take a big swing in free agency, and it is December 3rd, so don't hold me to this, please. But safety is definitely near the top of my list. I think Jalen Hawkins is going to be free agent, so they're going to need a starter there anyway. And they'll explore a position that they just did not spend a ton of money in last year. So I mentioned tight end. Yeah, that's a developmental long-term need. They could use another one in free agency. I don't think they'll spend big at receiver because Diggs is still going to be under contract. You're going to need to extend Booty if you want to keep him around. Pop Douglas will also be extension eligible. And that's really going to be the name of the offseason. It's more the extension piece than free agency in the draft because you finally have good draft picks that you want to keep. And I didn't even mention the most expensive one, Christian Gonzalez. So there's a lot here. You could also throw running back into that conversation. But those are the positions off the top of my head you want to go, okay, free agency first at the draft. They've got clear needs. It's just more like, okay, what happens when the top level of our, the pass rush could be better top to bottom. But the point is, that's where their margin of error is thin and the depth is a problem. How good is our next guy coming in? How long can we get by with that? If Will Campbell had this injury 2 months ago, you'd be in big trouble. And that's why I started with the offensive line. All right. I mentioned there's not any Patriots game this weekend. You know this. But when you're watching football anyway, I have to tell you, as I've told you every week, because they sponsor this podcast, and I do this, watching basketball and other games just to keep myself entertained. If you're not using Prizepicks, you're watching sports wrong. This is the simplest, easiest, best way to win money watching sports. And I'm not talking dangerous amounts. I'm not even talking big amounts. But at Prizepicks, it's this simple. All you have to do is build a lineup. They give you players, they give you stats. It could be yards, it could be touchdowns, it could be catches, whatever it is. And when you're watching Chiefs Texans, or it could be Bills Bengals, and you think so-and-so in your fantasy team or someone that we talked about in the podcast is going to have a big game, put your money where your mouth is. It could be as little as $5. You find that player, you see what the stat is. You can even tweak it to your liking to bring it up higher or bring it up lower. And again, you could do this with basketball and the Celtics, whatever it is. You pick one player in a stat, go higher or lower, put that in your lineup. You find another player with another stat. You're choosing. Put that in the lineup, pick higher or lower, more than or less than. It's that simple at Prizepicks. And the best part is, if you have somehow still December 3rd, not done this yet, while listening to the podcast, if you download the Prizepicks app today and use code CLNS, again, that's code CLNS, you will get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. But you have to download the Prizepicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50, 50 in lineups after you use your first $5 lineup. It's that easy. Download the Prizepicks app today. Prizepicks, it's good to be right. Joe, how well do you think Vederian Lowe and Ben Brown did as spot starters? Speaking of depth, Vederian Lowe I had down for 4 total pressures allowed. 3 were hurries. 1 was a quarterback hit. Ben Brown had the holding penalty. Iffy, but you get it. And then a quarterback hit. So pretty good. And Ben Brown, I would make the case, was their best run blocker for probably the entire game. So I liked it. Again, this is not about as good as some of the Giants' defensive linemen are. How good can you be for one game? What is sustainable is the question now at those positions, where one guy is going to be out for at least 3 more games, and Jared Wilson might be 2, even though he's not on IR. So teams will scheme for this. The Patriots got by, but now the Bills and the Ravens and even the Jets can kind of see what their answers might be. And the good news is McDaniels has a lot of answers. It was passable is the short answer. The better answer, though, is still we'll see. Bean Boba, what's going on with Efton Chism in the offense? It was a preseason, but his film was incredible. He looked like Edelman. Okay. Bean Bobas. I always say grab a beer, come hang when we do the Monday shows. Bean Boba, we got just the one beer this time. He looked like Edelman 2.0. Is this situation where the rookie is being slowly introduced to an offense with a fairly stacked receiver room? It will be featured more next year, or is there something else up? So I just talked about this as far as like a one-game sample and things that are sustainable and how much weight to put into them. Believe it or not, and this isn't even a game, there was a time this summer that the next MVP of the NFL, I was describing, jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, but based on his play and practice, as Drake Maye. Drake Maye are things that I actually said on television and probably on this podcast. We all know how outstanding he's been. All of which is to say that when he fumbles and did fumble against Washington in that preseason opener, I did not care. I do not care now. And you know who doesn't care? You don't care. The flip side is when you have an undrafted rookie who is always going to be a developmental receiver number 6, has a great preseason. It's not that I don't care for him. That's a cool performance. I'm glad to see it. He earned his spot. But I don't care about that relative to what happens immediately next. Not in the long-term prospects of his career, but even Julian Edelman as a rookie, okay, he earned a spot, that only saw the field because Wes Welker got hurt in that finale in 2009 and then lit it up and did basically nothing the next 3 years aside from a couple of punt return touchdowns. You look at the receiving numbers and get back to me. He didn't break out till 2013. I hope it doesn't take Efton Chism another 3 years to do that. Seems like a great kid and a useful player, but the preseason tape lies, man. It's just the level of competition, the small sample, the vanilla schemes all come together and show you something that is not sustainable. It's not reflective of real NFL football. He's a good young player that's going to need some more time, and he'll probably need to be better next year than he is this season to make the team. The good news is work ethic seems to reflect that he'll get there, and whatever talent he's got, he will wring out of himself, and they'll give him time to do so. D-Mac, with a K, not our guy, Devin McCourty, former guest on this podcast, 4 times. Any thoughts on why, in many games this season, Drake seems to overthrow or float passes at first and then kind of recalibrates and is great afterwards? It's just a curiosity to me. This, again, things that you forget in the process of me, kind of pushing the campaign for Drake Maye to win MVP because the stats back it up and we've all seen him play, yada, yada, was a real talking point in September when he's just a little juiced up and amped up. And he said it himself. This is not media narrative 101 BS. I don't agree with the assessment now, D-Mac, that he is always overthrowing at the start. But I think early in the season, how badly he wanted this, how badly he wanted to win, which in his mind would then give him license to lead and be a captain and take over this team. Because I think fairly and maturely he understood, I just can't go in there and like start acting like I've done something here in the league. There are no pelts on my wall. I don't have any, anything on another notch on the old belt. He had to win games. then he did that. And so I think that helped him calm down earlier in the season. But there's also just a small sample element to this. So I really don't see the overthrows early. He'll have misses, but we're talking about, as I've cited multiple times, the most accurate passing season in the modern era of the NFL. I'm not worried about that dude missing a couple of throws here and there, even if they look similarly. Let's zip through a couple. Football King. Not sure if you answered this week or last week. What do you think the Patriots will do with Terrell Williams next season? So Terrell Williams, it sounds like, is doing better. Mike Vrabel offered an update 2 weeks ago, and he's getting treatment. And the bottom line is, if he comes back healthy, and we are all rooting for this, of course, as he battles cancer, that he will be the Patriots defensive coordinator next season. And Zach Core has done a great job as a de facto defensive coordinator, as our guy, Football King. Good to be the king, by the way. How is that? I would love to know. It'd be really nice. I would love to be the king of anything, let alone football, which I cover. I think what this season will do for Zach Core in his career, Zach does not strike me as someone who is a climber, where you have got guys come through New England, here are two, boom, leave. This is a really good point on his resume to say in a year or two, if stuff comes up and word will get out and people start poaching from the staff, which we'll get to here in a second, he'll say, I did this first season. Here are the numbers. This is how far we went. That's pretty good. Not a lot of linebackers coaches, let alone those who have only been coaching defense for 5 years in the NFL, maybe 5 years, period. He was an offensive coach in college. Can say that. He can. So this is good for Zach. Even if it doesn't immediately parlay into a new job or something, he'll go back to his role. Terrell Williams, who has deserved this and had praise not just from Vrabel, but Dan Campbell and all these different places he's been, should be the defensive coordinator so long as he's healthy. Gary, what member of the coaching staff do you see getting poached soon? I don't know why I paused between poached and soon. We know McDaniels probably isn't going anywhere. Correct. But what about Core? Again, I think it'll be a couple of years, and I think he will go back to his old role, but Vrabel will continue to say all of the nice things that he said about him because Zach deserves it, and Zach's a smart guy. And this is really good for someone who's 37 and calling plays for the first time and coaching defense for just the 5th year. So what member is it? Thomas Brown is at the top of my list. And Thomas Brown, I just talk about climbers. I don't say this in a derogatory sense or a negative sense at all, because look, you run your career, your business, your life, however you want to. Thomas Brown has hopped around, and he has been a coveted coaching candidate. I think he's a good coach. When he came here, it struck me as a guy who goes to a head coach who everyone respects, nurtures his reputation a little bit, recovers, and gets built back up to being a candidate, maybe for this head coaching cycle, and if not this one, the next year. Where you don't take an off year, you don't take a sabbatical, but you come in, recover, get healthy. That's what this was with him under Vrabel. And so Thomas Brown is not the offensive coordinator here. He's a passing game coordinator. Maybe he gets another promotion after being in Chicago the year before, Carolina before that, and the Rams before that was Sean McVay. He would be a guy I'd keep an eye on to be an offensive coordinator. Other coaches, I don't really see anything on defense, but there's turnover every year. Maybe Doug Marrone retires. Maybe Todd Downing, gets an offer he can't refuse to be an offensive coordinator. I don't know. But Thomas Brown is number one at the top of my list, and it's, unless I'm really blanking on someone, doesn't seem very close. Noah, was last night's performance from the offensive line legit or fool's gold? So again, talking about the Giants game, it was not fool's gold. Again, that is a good defensive line, but it's not something I'm going to bank on when they allow one of their lower pressure rates for the entire season. And play calling factored in. The run blocking was meh, but it wasn't fool's gold. It's just somewhere in between. Mike Bond, do you think Milton Williams will be back for the Bills game? I mean, maybe he's talking about Terrell. It just says Williams, actually. Either way, the answer is no. Milton Williams is out until at least the Jets game on December 28th, and Terrell Williams, I think, is just going to be probably sidelined for the rest of the season. Total guess, not to be aggregated, not anything. It's just based on the man has cancer and he's undergoing treatment. We got two more. One is about the Dolphins. But I said I'd answer every question. Does that make me the football king, the prince? Some are asking. We don't know. Captain Mike, 3 points in the second half is not good enough. Did you feel the play calling was a little too predictable in the last two quarters? No, actually. But I do have my play charting right here that we can run down really quickly from that second half. So they had a long drive to start. They get down just in the outskirts of the red zone. You get a toss left that went for -1, incomplete, throw to Booty on a corner route, and then an incompletion to Henderson that I think bobbled this out of bounds into the left flat. So you had a run stuff that was buried. Oh, and by the way, the play before this, the last 3 plays of this series, you had a 4th and 6 conversion. So no, I don't think this was a play calling thing. I think the Giants swarmed to get a run stuff. That happens. You had an incompletion to Booty and then a drop. So that looks like execution to me. The next series, you had a sack. This was on Drake Maye. So that's not play calling either. You had a screen. I think the only one they called, one of 4 play action throws. That went for 12 yards. So a good play call there. And by now, you guys know this is not like me defending Josh McDaniels, which to be fair, you will get from other media members. It's just, this is what the notes are. This is what happened. And then you get a 26-yard run in the next series, and they're kind of running out the clock at this point. They get down to the 7, short run from the 9, incompletion to Henry. This is a bad throw by Maye. It was a little behind him. And then a scramble where he gets 2 yards, and everyone is going, hey, get down, get down, get down. Because, Drake, you're up 3 scores. Just don't take any hits, man. So long answer to a short answer, no. Here's the Dolphins question. Filthy casual. The Dolphins' future GM candidates? Mike McDaniel? To actually, it just says McDaniel question mark to a question mark. I'm sorry. We got one more after this. It's from Dave. And this is ending on a Patriots note. Champ Kelly, their interim GM, might be their full-time GM. Champ Kelly was with Dave Ziegler, who you remember was the Patriots de facto GM under Belichick in 2021, and then left with Josh McDaniels. And look, those Raiders years were not good for anybody, okay, aside from the pocketbooks and maybe Devontae Adams and Jimmy Garoppolo. The point is, Champ Kelly has respect around the league. You always also hear names like Ed Dodds, who somehow has been on GM lists for, I think, over a decade. He's the assistant GM in Indianapolis, Trey Brown in Cincinnati, and maybe Ryan Cowden. I don't think Ryan Cowden would leave Vrabel's side after year 1 to go to a division rival, especially with Tua's contract. I don't know how they get off that, but I have to imagine he's gone, as well as Mike McDaniel. So there you go. Dave, do you think we'll see more of Joshua Farmer over Eric Gregory going forward? He just seems much more powerful and productive as a run stuffer. Joshua Farmer was a healthy scratch not too long ago. And again, not to be shared. Like the sense you get from a 4th round rookie who has an obvious avenue to playing time, who then just doesn't get it. Not because he's injured, but because the coaching staff says this isn't going to work. And I see the plays, Dave, that you see. Says there's something that's not necessarily on the field to me. That's just my read on it. The point is, yeah, he's stronger, I think, than Gregory. But Gregory is a player that they liked in the draft, obviously added at the end of the summer when he got cut in Cincinnati, and I think seems to be better as a pass rusher. And so to me, when they're doing this, they go, okay, who do we trust? Durden, Tonga, Barmore in the interior, especially early downs. Who do we like late downs if we have to rotate more guys in? That's where Gregory probably gets a nod. Either way, I don't think there's a big appreciable difference here, but that's my read in the whole situation. All right, that's it. I am back to my bye week. Actually, we got to finish a long story for the Herald and now join Brad Barrett on his podcast. But the point is, no more podcasts this week. You will hear from me at the soonest next Tuesday. If you want to tune in, as always, Toucher and Hardy, Tuesday mornings, 8 to 9. Other than that, I'm so excited for this Bills game already. And we will have 2 great episodes before that game. We'll be back 2 Mondays from now with a Mike Giardi Monday, breaking down all of the film. Then going to Baltimore. That'll be my first road game, by the way, since I became a dad. Anyway, we are looking way too far ahead now. Enjoy your time off. Revisit the rooting guide. There's a lot at stake for the Patriots, even though they're not on the field. And they are still the best team in football record-wise as they lead the AFC. Anyway, thanks, guys.